Alrighty, my first book review, yay. I just finished Malice by John Gwynne, or Gwynne. I don't really know how you pronounce his last name. So I've never done a book review before. But I like how the guys at Two to Ramble do book reviews. It's not exactly like they do, because they do prose and stuff. I don't really, from what I understand, prose is basically how well you're able to kind of read it. So it differs for people, I guess. I mean, all of this stuff does, because it's entertainment, right? So, but I want to it'll be kind of how their scale of ranking things. So yeah, obviously there will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't read Malice, I suggest you go do that before you watch. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll jump into my overall thoughts on the book. Overall, I think I would probably give it a 4.5 rating, because I really enjoyed it a lot. I actually read through this in 3 weeks, and I'm a very slow reader, so it would take me a while to get through this usually, but I did it. So I really started devouring that book, and I already have the second book in this series, and I've read the first 6 chapters, so there's some. We'll get into I might mention a little bit of the next book as well, more towards the end of this video though. So first of all, the world, let's see here. There are some things that I would have liked to see more, but it's a 4-book series, so I'm assuming we'll see more of it later. And for me, Corbin really carried this book character-wise. I thought he was the most interesting, which makes sense, because I think he easily has the most chapters out of everybody everybody else. So, and with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start jumping into this more spoiler side of things, with the first topic being characters, which I gave a 4 total out of, because there were some characters that I liked. I'm mainly only going to be talking about the readable characters though, not the side characters. So, well, I say mainly because I have one on here that's not necessarily a perspective character, but we see a lot of him via Veritas and other people, and that's Nether, and he's very important. If you've read the book, you know he's very important, because Nether is basically going to be kind of the main antagonist, it seems. One thing I really enjoyed while reading this book was seeing whenever things happened, I'd have to go back and refer to the prophecy and kind of see what happened, when Corbin, because Corbin has Storm, his Wolven, and then he's got his horse named Shield, and in the prophecy it mentions him, the Bright Star, kind of standing with Storm and Shield, or something along those lines. So it's nice to kind of look back to the prophecy and kind of see what's going on. And now there is thing about the prophecy is, that's more. We'll talk more about the prophecy later. Anyways, Nether is interesting. I actually really like his kind of why he's the villain, because he doesn't see himself as the villain, which I like. He thinks he's the bright star, and he doesn't see that his wanting to rule over everybody is something, and if they don't go do what he says, he will literally kill them as being bad. He thinks he's doing the good thing and fighting against the dark sun, I believe is what it's called. No, black sun. Black sun is what it's called. The bright star and the black sun. So I kind of like that. And like how whenever he arrived at Dunkerque and Corbin kind of saw him go by on his horse, Corbin could like immediately see the darkness like kind of enveloping it there, which is nice, very magical. And then after that we get Veritas, who is Nether's right hand man, and we actually are reading his perspective and not Nether's. So he has big issues with his dad. Both Nether and Veritas do, because I'm not exactly sure as to why Nether does, because like I guess it's because his father expects a lot from him, because he's his heir and whatnot, whereas for Veritas, it's he wants to prove himself to his dad, which I guess they both do in that sense. So, and the reason why Veritas is like his dad doesn't like Veritas basically is because when Veritas was born, his mom died. So whenever Veritas' father sees him, it reminds him of his dead wife, which is not good. But he also has a nice brother, which I like his brother. I can't remember what his name is, though. But I like his brother. They definitely won't be fighting on opposite sides of a war at all, surely. That's totally going to happen, by the way. And then we get to probably my second favorite character in the book so far, in the series so far, which is Camlin. I really liked his like redemption story, because like we started out and he just like he's part of a bandit like group, and then he kind of has this internal struggle with what's going on, because he was tasked with putting roots in this other forest, the Baglin Forest, I think is what it's called. So he was tasked by the leader of his bandit group to set up camp there, and he did. He was doing so, but because they were also working for some other people, mainly being Evnis, and they were charged to kill a farming family, essentially, and like they're just like farmers on like the edge of town. And so Camlin does not like killing children and women, so he was going to leave them alive, the children and women alive. But then I think one of the farmer's like wife or daughter like grabbed like a knife and tried to stab one of the men, and then that pissed off that man, and he killed the rest of them and burned their entire house down. And we see this initially from Corbin's perspective, because like he went out there, went into the woods, the family left, and then there was like a wedding basically, and then that farmer's family, because Corbin was friends with like the eldest son of that family, I believe, and they left the wedding early and then were killed basically, so like they could see the smoke in the distance. you know, so, and I mean, like, Corbin literally saw the charred corpse of, like, his friend and his friend's family. So, I mean, that kicked off, like, until that event happened, it was relatively kind of, like, peaceful. The only, like, interesting things, I would say, were probably, like, Corbin's visions, basically. Which I think that was like either one of the Kadoshin, which are basically like demons, trying to get, like, I think the people, like, I think the champions were decided, the champions of Elyon and Azeroth, which are the gods of this world, and they are clashing. Elyon, the good and the creator, and then Azeroth, the destroyer, basically. So I think who the champions were going to be was decided, but which side they're going to fight on was not decided, because it seemed like Azeroth was kind of putting his, like, dipping his toes into both of them, basically. Because I think that vision was like either it was Azeroth trying to turn Corbin, like, evil, essentially, or it was one of the, like, Kadoshin, which are like demons that work for Azeroth. But he turned that guy down and was then saved by, I'm pretty sure was Michael, and which I mean, I think Michael is a Ben Elam, which are basically like angels, and it makes sense because his name is literally Michael. It's just spelled differently, but I think phonetically it's pronounced Michael. And, you know, Michael is an archangel, so makes sense. Back to Camlin, anyways. Got off a little tangent there. Back to Camlin. So what's really nice about Camlin is that he has that internal struggle about killing women and children, and then that happened. He still trusts basically the leader of the bandits, until then they also are then again tasked, after their bandit group basically gets decimated by like 3 kingdoms united, forced to, like, take them down. Then they're forced to retreat, and then later they are actually teaming up with Ren's kingdom. I can't remember what that name is either. Ren's kingdom, and they, with Ephnis, they betray Owain, which was one of the allies that was helping. And then there was another instance, and then they also captured Brennan's wife, Alona, I think is what her name was. And basically all that stuff happens to kind of frame both kings to, like, be against each other, so that they will eventually go to war, and then Ren can come in and kill everybody else and take over both kingdoms, basically. That's her plan. Brennan is, like, learns of her plan, basically, because Corbin and Camlin put a stop to it, of what's going on. Because, again, all their captors are women that can't really fend for themselves, besides Cywin, who's really only good at throwing knives. And then Corbin is very interested in going to this bandit camp, because Cywin is his sister, and obviously he doesn't want her to die. So, yeah, they go. Storm leads them to the bandit camp, and then when Corbin's party gets there, Camlin is already, like, defending the women. So, and prior to that, he was literally told by the boss of his bandit group that the boss for the entire time has worked for the queen. So he's like, I don't know who the fuck to trust now. So yeah, I like Hamlin's redemption, kind of, because he was kind of involved in all this criminal activity, but he stood up for what is right, and that is not kidnapping women for political gain. Next, I want to talk about this is probably my third favorite character, and that's being Castell, the nephew of one of the kings of the other kingdom, Romar. And he has this interesting thing going on with him, because like he basically has no friends besides this like old man named Macwin, who saved him when he was a kid. And then he's got a cousin. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Jail, or if you don't pronounce the J or whatever, I don't know. They do not get along at all, because Castell's cousin, is always spreading rumors about Castell and bad-mouthing him, basically, so nobody wants to be his friend. And then he doesn't really care. He's not... In the beginning, Castell kind of sees it like everybody's out to get him, basically. And then Macwin has to talk some sense in him. He's like, hey, not everybody's out to get you. You just need to actually put yourself out there and try to make some friends. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. So then he does throughout the rest of the book, he does make some friends, mainly with Veritas. Castell and Veritas become decent friends whenever all the kings have to go to the Council of Kings, basically, to talk about the prophecy, which was announced. So that's when those two meet. And then in the end, he dies, and I hope he wasn't dead, but then I read like 6 chapters of the next book, and he is dead, and his cousin killed him, and it's very sad. I really liked his and Macwin's friendship too, but hey, he died, so what are you gonna do? Nothing, apparently. Sucks. Alright. Next is Cywin, which is Corbin's sister. She was another readable perspective character. And I don't really have much to say about her. She is very feisty. I thought she's very enjoyable to read. I would say if I was ranking characters based on my favorite perspectives, it would probably go Corbin, Camwin, Castell, then Cywin, then Veritas, then Evnus. Evnus just sucks. I understand why he sucks, but he sucks. And I mean, what Brennan... let's not go on another tangent. I'll talk about Evnus next. So yeah, for her, she doesn't really... I would say she doesn't really play that much of a role in like plot-wise, but we actually learn quite a bit from her, because she overhears her parents and Gar talking to Michael about Corbin. So we learned quite a bit about that. And then her relationship with Corbin is very fun to read, I would say. And how her story ends in this book is also pretty interesting. She takes out probably one of the best swords. I say takes out. Neither one of them die. But she basically renders him useless for the rest of the fight, which is pretty nice. I'm talking about Connell, which he's a very good swordsman. All right, because he's Hallian's brother, and Hallian is great swordsman. But that's really it for her. I mean, she's on her own now, pretty much, in this next book. So I do look forward to seeing. I hope she gets out of there and is able to find her way to where Corbin is. But I'm not sure if that's actually going to happen. The thing with Cywin is that she actually doesn't know where they're going. But she knows, because she overheard the conversation with Michael, so she knows about Drasil, or whatever it's called, which is like a hidden city. So she might go try to find that instead. I don't really know. So I will see in the next book, I guess. And then Evnus, I understand, like, Evnus is definitely hungry for power, but he also does care deeply for his family, mainly his wife and son, because his wife basically kept his anger at bay, and then she was on her sickbed in this story, and he needed to go take her to some other, I think, country to a cauldron, basically, which would have healed his wife. And Brennan basically says no, because Alona needs his wisdom or whatever, which, I mean, as a king, that does not, like, if I was in Brennan's shoes, I'd be like, yeah, go. Go save your wife. We will be fine without you for a few days. Go get her healed and come back. But no, he's like, oh yeah, your wife is sick and she's dying. Yeah, you need to see, I'm leaving, so you need to stay here because I'm leaving. Which kind of seems like a douchey move on his part. But other than that move, I think Brennan is fine. King Brennan is fine. And that just settles in Evnus, like, oh, yeah, this is why I want to kill you. You won't even let me go save my wife. Sure. I did forget to mention something about Veritas. Veritas comes to a very, very stupid conclusion in the story, which is just ridiculous. It's like the only plot point that I just don't like about in the first book, which is Veritas, because another king comes to visit, basically the High King, which is Nether's dad, and King Aquilus. So then it's King Mandros that comes to visit him, and in the council, whenever they're talking about the prophecy, it was Mandros that was the most boisterous and unbelieving of the prophecy. So then after the eclipse that was foretold in the prophecy occurs, Mandros then comes back to the capital and is talking with King Aquilus, and then they're in Nether's room, and then Nether and King Aquilus kind of get into an argument over the Vendalen, which have been like a pain in everybody's ass on the coastline for like ever. And they just now had like a peace deal, basically, and obviously King Aquilus is not very trusting of them, which makes sense because they've been a pain in his ass the entire for like ever. So yeah, they get into a fight about that, and then King Aquilus basically gets tired of this arguing with his son, and tells Veritas to go bring Mandros to him. So Veritas goes, does that, and right now, Nether and Veritas, for whatever reason, just because that Mandros spoke out against the prophecy, they think that he is working for Azeroth. And so Nether doesn't trust him. Sorry, Nether and Veritas both don't trust him. And Veritas basically takes him, Mandros, to go meet King Aquilus in Nether's chamber. But he takes Mandros' weapon. And so they go in. So then he guides Mandros to the chamber, but Veritas stays outside, and then Mandros goes in, and then so we don't really know what they talked about in there, or if Aquilus was dead already, but so basically Mandros goes in, leaves. The book describes him as being very pale-faced and frightened, I think, and he basically leaves immediately. And then Veritas is like, "What happened?" He goes in and sees Nether stabbed in the gut and King Aquilus dead, and he thinks, "Oh, it was obviously Mandros. Nobody else could do this." Which, I mean, I understand he trusts Nether, but that is a dumb conclusion, because also Mandros is described as a fat guy, and he somehow, without a weapon, was able to not only steal Nether's knife, which Veritas knows Nether does not trust Mandros, so I don't understand why Nether would let Mandros get close enough for him to do that, but then also is able to overpower both King Aquilus and Nether and kill the king and severely wound Nether. I don't understand why Veritas thinks that is the case, but apparently he does, which I think is just dumb. But I understand that it's probably because his mind is being corrupted and he's being whispered to by either the Cadoshim or Azeroth. Anyways, back to Corbin. He's my favorite character, Corbin, in this entire book. We get a lot of him. I really enjoyed reading his, basically, this book is basically the entire book is basically Corbin's training arc. He is taught many things by Gar, Hallion, his dad, all these different people. He gets Storm, he gets Shield, he gets all these things. He's taught medical herbs from Brenna, the old lady healer. I hope that he learns the magic and stuff, the glamours and whatnot. Which I think Brenna probably could teach him because she knows that shit. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading seeing his growth, basically. And whenever he turned down that guy in the vision, that was pretty cool. But then and then at the end, we actually saw him fight against two opponents, being Rafe, his basically childhood bully that's been bullying him for forever, and then Rafe's dad, which Corbin killed Rafe's dad, which was very cool. But he did get stabbed in the shoulder beforehand. And then I guess Corbin technically didn't kill him, because I think it was he got slashed in the shoulder, and then Storm just pounced on Rafe's dad and tore out his throat or something along those lines. And the whole thing with Storm was also really cool, because he basically protected Storm, because Avernus wanted to kill Storm, which was basically an innocent baby cub, because the the adult wolven that were protecting their children, scared Evanes's sons. Vaughn, his horse, got scared and then fell onto Vaughn's leg and broke it. So that's literally why Evanes wanted to kill those cubs. And Corbin's like, no, this little baby did nothing wrong. Look at its cute copper eyes. And then there was like the whole thing with Storm attacking Rafe, because Rafe was totally about to kill Corbin, and then he had to send her away. I like all the stuff with Storm. Dire wolves are cool, and these are basically cooler dire wolves because they're dire wolves mixed with saber-toothed tigers, which is pretty cool. So yeah, and then how Corbin actually reacts whenever the assault on the castle is happening, and then his father dies, and how he's like, at first he's like obviously enraged by this, but he's able to then calm himself down and not go into like a very heated rage. Obviously he's very angry with Nether, because Nether is the one that killed Corbin's dad. And Corbin is obviously very pissed at Nether because he's like, you killed my dad, I'm gonna fucking kill you. But he's able to calm himself down and not charge into the shield wall where he would surely die, but then is able to retreat back to where everybody else is and get Donna and pretty much Hallion and all of them get out of there. And he's the one that's able to guide them through the secret passage that, other than him and Cywin, only Evanes knows about, pretty much. So, yeah, characters are pretty damn good in this series so far. Next, I will talk about the world total, which I know I've already talked about some of the creatures, mainly being the Wolven, which are obviously the direwolves, saber-toothed tiger hybrid. So I gave world a straight 4 as well. I didn't give anything a 5 out of this, because I mean, this world seems kind of a lot like our world, except for a couple of things. Being the Wolven and giant bats that are able to suck the blood out of an entire human in one go, and the giants and stuff. So, world building wise, I really enjoyed it. We learned a lot about the Banished Lands, which are like, basically it's like what the name of the continent is that they're on. And then we also learned a lot about the prophecy, giants, and some of their lore with the Starstone artifacts and stuff. And we got to see lots of different parts of the world with different like kingdoms and all that jazz. Because we saw one that was like a deserty kingdom, and then Dunkerque, which is where Corbin is more of like a in the US it would be more of like the states that kind of border Canada, I think. So like they're pretty nice weather for the most part, and then at winter it'll get really cold. And then we also got to see more of a tepid weather environments, which are basically like in like the middle of the continent. And we learned about the God War a little bit, and seeing a bunch of different creatures like Nether got a drake, I believe is what it's called. Which I'm not sure if they're like supposed to be like dragons or if they're supposed to be like giant lizards, because I don't think whenever they were fighting, they didn't say that they flew. they were like charging into like Veritas' shield wall and stuff. So I'm not sure if they're supposed to be like dragons or just giant like lizards, like dinosaurs. Either way, Nether got one in the book that just like hatched. So I imagine we'll be seeing more of that later. And then there's also like giant snakes. There's a lot of giant things. Giant wolves, giant snakes, giant lizards, giant bats. Lots of giant things in this world that all live in like the same forest. So great. The drakes don't. But like I think the wolvens and I know that the worms, bats live in the same area. I'm not sure about if the wolvens live in that foreign forest, which is where it's like kind of borders a road between Helveth and Isiltir, which is Isiltir is where Castell is from, and then Helveth is like just like below it, I think. But yeah, that's mainly it for the world. We learned quite a bit about the giants and the artifacts, which we've only seen 2 of the artifacts so far, which we've seen the axe, which was in Isiltir until it got stolen by the giants. And then we saw the cauldron, but we didn't see much of the cauldron. We saw it in both Corbin and Aethera's visions, and then we also saw it in the prologue, I believe, with Evnus, and then we only ever since then have... Oh no, no, we know where it is, I believe. There's, close to Dunkerrig is another giant tribe, and I believe that they're protecting the cauldron, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was like the prologue of the next book. And then we get some plot points. So as for like these plot points, I kind of covered a lot of these. I gave it a 3.75. I thought it was very good. Again, I will reiterate, there are just Evnus's dumb conclusion kind of brings it down a lot for me. But again, I understand why he thought that. And then I was saddened by Castell's death, which I guess is not a reason to mark it down, but I'm upset that Castell died. And then for impact, I gave it a 4 mainly because there were again times where I didn't have to, but I kind of stopped reading and it was like, damn, I can't believe that just happened. Or I was like, huh. And then I looked back at the prophecy and tried to like connect some dots there. Like whenever, a lot of times I like stopped reading. It was like, holy shit, what the hell, was whenever, mainly whenever like characters died. Like whenever, Mandros left and like Veritas walked in, it's like, the king is dead and Nether has been stabbed in the gut. And it's like, what the shit happened there? And then whenever Veritas, he basically captured Mandros and then killed him because he got angry with him. And that was another like, oh, well, shit, man. Also, I think that's like the first time we explicitly saw that there was like a voice whispering into his ear. And then there's also those, like when Cywin and Connell fall off the wall, we don't really see what happens to them. We just know that they fall off, and we're like, oh, great. Are they both dead? Did Cywin survive, or is Cywin dead and Connell survive? And like, we don't really know that, so I was like, god damn, the characters are falling. And then obviously, when Castell died, I was like, god damn it. I was like, fuck this Jahel guy. Stupid ass. Hate that guy. And then for theme, I actually kind of like the theme. I'm not very good. I wouldn't say I'm very good with themes. But what I think is the theme of this book, at least from what I can tell, a lot of it is based on control of one's like emotions, which I think is important to have. You can't let your emotions rule you, because you have a nice comparison between Thayer and Corbin, which Corbin in the beginning, he's not really in control of his emotions, but he's not like, he doesn't have like outbursts or anything like that. Like whenever he's getting bullied by Rafe, he just kind of stands there and takes it. Even though he wants to fight back, he just doesn't. Whereas for Thayer, he is like a slave to his passions. Like he will, like if somebody disagrees with him and makes him mad, he will want that person dead, which is obviously what happens because Romar and Brennan are both like, hey, you can't just kill kings like that, like you did with Mandros. What the hell happened there? I'm going to inquire about this. And Thayer's like, you dare question me? You're walking on a fine line. And then whenever Brennan basically, it's like, hey, this is my kingdom. I will get you your information when I have time. And Thayer's like, no, I am now the High King. You will listen to me or I will kill you. And that's exactly what happens. Thayer sides with Owain and Evnus and kills Brennan. So, yeah. Whereas Corbin is able to kind of rein in his emotions and think more calmly and critically. So, yeah. I mean, I gave theme a 4. I think it's a fine theme. Again, I'm not doing prose because I don't know. I don't know what to say for prose. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was reading was pretty easy, and the prose was okay, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand prose. So yeah, in conclusion, I thought it was a great book. So if you haven't read it, read it. I don't know why you're watching this video if you haven't read it, but you should read it. It's a great book. Read the series. Yeah, and then I really wanted, what I really want, I have some things that I want to happen in the future, and I really wanted Castell to live, obviously, but you know, apparently he's dead. So, other than that, though, what I really want is in the future of the series, I want to see Veritas kind of see that, and I feel like that's kind of gonna happen. That might happen, is that he sees that and sees that there is actually not the bright star but the black sun, and because I think what's gonna happen is the information is gonna get to Veritas that down in the crypt they betrayed King Romar, and that Jahel was the one that killed Castell. So I think that's going to piss Veritas off. And obviously, Thayer will probably side with Jahel because those two are friends, whereas Veritas and Castell were friends. Thayer and Jahel were friends. I don't know. I still don't know how to pronounce that guy's name. Is the J silent? Is it not? I don't know. But yeah, so I want Veritas to see the light, damn it. And I wanted Castell not to be dead, but he is dead, and that saddens me. And then, I've read, like, the first, 6 chapters of Valor, which is the next book in the series, and, Mac Wynne has been through some stuff. There was, 2 Mac Wynne chapters, and he has been through it, man. Hopefully he doesn't die too. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So I will maybe see y'all if I make the next one.